Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to go through a list of some series that I am planning to DNF. This is a little different from just regular DNFs as I have completed all of the books that I'm going to talk about, but the series themselves that these books are within, I am currently not planning to continue on with. Some of these, though, are soft DNFs, so sort of the never say never, I might come back to them, we'll see, and then the other group are the hard DNFs where I just really don't foresee myself returning, and for various different reasons, which we'll get into. I know sometimes DNF videos can be a little bit of a Debbie Downer topic, because for those of you that end up loving this series, it can really be unfortunate to hear somebody say, I don't want to keep going. But I do find that in talking about what didn't work for me, that sometimes that illustrates and actually enlightens you to things that you might like. So hopefully there's a positive side to this. But I'll go ahead and start with the soft DNFs. The first one would be Spice Road. I actually quite liked this first book. I liked the setting of it. And I really liked the sense of exploration. It felt like kind of a classic adventure story, but it's one of those books that when I read it, I enjoyed it, I liked it, but the more time that has passed, the more I'm kind of uncertain because it didn't really stick with me. I'm not sure if it's because it feels a little bit like other stories I have read before, and maybe it doesn't feel like it's really breaking new ground or something like that, and I don't know. The reason it's a soft DNF is because I didn't dislike the story by any means, and I don't necessarily think that everything needs to be something fresh and unique and we've never seen anything like it before. I actually find sometimes it can feel like coming home when you read something that's a little bit more familiar and familiar ground. But with this one, I just am unsure. I liked it, but we'll see. Something similar can be said for the book Unseelie. This one, I really liked the representation within it because our main character is somebody who is autistic. And so I thought the author did such a phenomenal job taking what feels like kind of a traditional quest type of story, adventure type of story, and having it from a perspective that we don't typically see. And what would be the additional ways in which this character would have to navigate things differently than your traditional type of main character? What would that look like? And it was also really, I think, quite beautiful to see that when I talked about this series in a new releases wrap up, there were some people that were talking about how wonderful it was to see what they felt like was themselves reflected in this story. The only reason that it is a soft DNF is because, once again, like Spice Road, and even the way I described it, you might already be picking up on this, is it feels a little bit familiar in its type of story. I might end up picking it up if it's at the library, and I do like immersion reading, so if I can get the audiobook and I can get the physical book or something, and the stars align and everything comes together at the same time, I could see myself picking it up. It's one of those things that I'm sure a lot of us have experienced where there's so little time and so many books, and as a result, these are not books that have really stuck with me and wowed me and have made me incredibly emotional and that I can't not pick up the next one, sort of a thing. And there are just so many books out there that I want to check out. But I did like this one as well. I thought it was sweet. I thought the relationship between the main character and her sister was lovely. And as I said, I liked this character, the way in which her journey was shown. I liked that in both of the first two books I've mentioned. So we'll see. That's why they are in the soft camp. Same for Nightbirds. Man, as I'm talking about these, I'm like, I don't know, I kind of want to see what happens next, but maybe it's like these are low priority. Instead of calling it soft DNF as I'm discussing these, we'll call them low priority. We'll get to them maybe at some point, but maybe not right away. So anyway, Nightbirds is a story that follows these three young women who are they have certain powers, and these powers are utilized among the wealthy and the rich. However, they're also illegal, and at some point there is essentially like this religious crackdown on this type of magic, as it is seen as almost forbidden and dangerous. And so now these women's lives are in danger, and they are finding there are a lot of other individuals that have powers like themselves that were not elevated in their financial status and their positions. They have not been protected their whole lives, and so you are seeing those people and our main characters sort of joining together to fight for their own freedom. And I really quite liked the book. I liked the characters, I liked the plot, I liked the pacing. It was a lot of fun. But similar to what I said about the first two, it just didn't really stick with me. So I can see myself continuing on, but as I have newly labeled this category, this is a not high priority for me. Sword Defiance, I really liked what the author did with this book, which is taking the traditional heroes of our sword and sorcery type of fantasy, the people that defeated the Dark Lord, and what the author did was examine years later, where are these people now? And the answer is they're struggling. And I thought exploring that and sort of critiquing the foundation of a lot of our modern fantasy works while still respecting the inspirations was done really well. But I almost feel like this could be, even though it very much is leading up to something bigger and it leaves off in a almost cliffhanger place, I almost feel like it could have been a standalone. I don't know. It's kind of like now that we've established the emotional stakes and the trauma, now we're actually getting into a new story is what it feels like. But I'm like, do I want that new story? I don't know. And I actually vividly remember talking about Nightbirds, I think, and the Sword Defiant around the same time, and for both of them being like, I liked both of these, I plan to keep going with both of these. And now I'm just a little uncertain, now that we're kind of coming to the end of the year and I'm really looking ahead at what my highest priority books are, what I really want to get to, what I'm really anticipating. And I liked both of these. I will continuously recommend them with praise. I'll continue to talk about the things that I think are great about these because there aren't negatives necessarily. I just don't know if I really can see myself continuing. Getting into now, though, the hard DNFs, the ones that I'm like, I don't think so. Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I did give this series. It's the only one on this list that I read the sequel, and I'm like, no. And I don't need more Xaden and Violet. I really don't need more of the two of them. I was curious to see, because as you have basically I've documented my Fourth Wing journey this year, you could say, and my fascination with it, and just kind of wanting to see more of what was going to happen, not just with the story, but just the phenomenon that are these books. But I don't care. I really don't care about these characters, though. And I don't want to be that person that keeps reading just so I can be like, I don't like this. Let me tell you why. And like keep going to, I don't know. I know that it can be very entertaining when people do that, but I want to read books that I love. I don't want to read books just to hate on them or make fun of them. That's never been my thing. And I want to be clear. I didn't hate these books. I don't have this visceral reaction. There's more like a sense of amusement because I do find them amusing. I just don't, that, like I described, that's not me. The continuing to read something I don't like for entertainment purposes is not me. No shade to anybody that does that because we all need a good laugh from time to time, and some people really are, it's like an art form. But for me, it's just not what I'm interested in spending my time on. And also I know what it takes to write a book and how much effort goes into it. So there's a little part of my soul that's just like, I don't want to, I just because it's not for me doesn't mean that I want to bash it for my own, I don't know, views, or I don't know. I just don't, that's not, like I said, that's not what I don't like doing that. I really don't like doing that. I will continue to recommend that series though. One, because I recommend things that don't work for me regardless, since we all have very different tastes, but also because I can see why so many people love it as far as the action and the angst and the really intense romance and sexy scenes. And I also get like the dragons are really cool and it's very fast paced and all that stuff. I can see why people love it, and so I'll continue to recommend it. It's just not one I don't want to keep going with. These characters just drive me up a wall. Next up we have Chaos and Flame. This one had a lot of cool political elements to it. The world had a lot of potential for me to really like it. However, to use a word again that I just used for Fourth Wing, the angst in this was not for me. It was kind of an enemies to lovers, almost fated, not faded. Fated, what is the term? Fated lovers is just what it is, right? Anyway, it kind of had that feel to it. And so these people that should hate each other almost immediately are like, yeah, but like, they're kind of hot. And that's not my cup of tea. I can't, it just, nothing pulls me out of a story more than people that should hate each other, and legitimately should hate each other, because the one character, his brother and him are among the rulers of this house, and they have within their, like, they have imprisoned the father figure of the other character. And so now she herself is somewhat of a hostage, because they're sort of, she's representing the potential of this being a leader for this other house. And they're like, but what if we become allies? And if we become allies and you work with us, maybe we'll let your dad go. And I'm like, dude, if I was her, I'd be like, I'm killing you the first chance I get, because I like my dad and he means more to me than you guys. You guys go around and kill a lot of people and conquer a lot of people, and I'm not about that. Like, I just... No, I would not be like, all right, I'm being held kind of sort of hostage because my dad's imprisoned, so I kind of have to play along with them. And, like, actually they're politically savvy, and I understand that they're rulers of this house and they're trying to get what they can out of this deal, and they're actually treating me decently. But at the end of the day, sorry, I just went on this, like, long tangent. My point being, my first instinct immediately wouldn't be like, but the one guy is hot, though, so I don't know if I want to kill him after all. That just would... And the guy, too, he has a reason for finding her fascinating, which is that his brother has this prophetic ability to see this woman that he continuously paints, and that woman is her. And so when our main character meets her, he's like, she's important for some reason. So I get his fascination, but her fascination, I'm like, no. Sorry, that was a little ranty. Apologies. I just don't like that kind of enemies to lovers. I do think the term actually works, though. I think that term gets thrown around a little too casually for things that sometimes are not applicable whatsoever. It's like, one time when I first met him, he irritated me, so enemies to lovers, and you're like, that's not the same. This is enemies to lovers, it's just not in the way I like, even though it almost had the potential to be the way I like it. Anyway, moving on. Next we have, I think the first one's called Age of Myth. This is by Michael J. Sullivan. I did not hate this book whatsoever. I just don't know if Michael J. Sullivan's writing is necessarily for me. I do like a kind of cheeky writing style. I like it when authors don't take themselves too seriously, and I can have a lot of fun with that. I think that that is a decent way to describe the couple things I have read by Michael J. Sullivan, but of course, just like any style, you're going to find that some authors utilize it differently. Just because two different stories can be described as funny doesn't mean they're funny in the same way. And I just don't know if my personal, what I like from a cheeky, fun adventure story is the kind that Michael J. Sullivan writes. However, if you like that, then I would definitely say give it a go. I know my friends too, my friend Joshana, my friend Jessie May, both of them have their own channels, so if you're a big Sullivan fan, check both of them out. They've sang the praises of this series in particular because the character development and growth and their arcs and the emotional heavy hits that the series has is apparently phenomenal. I just don't know if the writing is for me. This might go kind of between soft/lower priority and hard DNF. It might go kind of in between because I could see myself giving it another go. It certainly was not a taxing, annoying read by any means. It's just not something that I find I'm connecting to. The last couple, Silver Under Nightfall. This one for me it's very clearly inspired by Castlevania, and I'm a big fan of Castlevania. The first of the Netflix shows, Castlevania Nocturne. If you watched my FMA review, I didn't really care for it. But Silver Under Nightfall, regardless, is inspired by Castlevania. And the further in we got, the more I was like, I kind of just want to watch Castlevania again. And it actually was an unfortunate inspiration in that for me, it definitely is unique enough where I don't feel... There's some things that are maybe just a little too similar, but for the most part, I would say it certainly stands on its own. It's just unfortunate in that every time there'd be something that is rooted in its inspiration, it just reminded me that I liked Castlevania more. I feel really bad. But if you are a fan of Castlevania, maybe check this out. You might really like it. It does get to be very smutty. I was surprised. I was not expecting the level that it gets to. I was like, oh, wow, all right. And that's not, you know, a bad or a good thing. Just letting people know. And if maybe for you, you're like, hey, Castlevania and smut, sign me up. Maybe that sounds like the perfect mix for you. But for me, again, I even after watching Castlevania Nocturne, I just went and started watching clips on YouTube of Castlevania and like the fight scenes and funny moments and like the best of Alucard or the best of whatever. And I'm just like, man, I just want to watch this show again. So anyway, and then last we have Seven Faceless Saints. This one had a lot of potential to be something I really liked. I liked the way in which it was kind of critiquing the way the character was very consumed by what is supposedly right, the hold that their sort of religious figures have over the city. And I also liked the sort of mystery of these characters that grew up together, our main characters, who were very close, and then something has happened that has changed their relationship, and now they're having to work together again, but things have changed, and you're kind of puzzling that out while still kind of hoping that they can renew the friendship that they had from before. This one had something that dual perspective stories that have romantic plot lines that I think have to be careful of, which is the repetitive nature of the characters being like, oh man, when we were like pressed up against each other, like it reminded me that they're actually really hot. And then in the next chapter, the character is like, oh, when she was pressed up against me, I was reminded of how hot she is. And I'm just like, okay, I know. I just read that I don't need to see this again. And it happened so many times. And that's fine. It's not an objectively bad thing. And some people, that's what they want when they get these two characters that are sort of pining for each other. I want to see it from the one person's perspective, and then I want to see it from the other person's perspective, and I want to see both of them falling in love. And for me, I don't want to see them both falling in love like that. It can be kind of cute to see both the characters feeling something, and you're just like waiting for them to reveal their feelings, but their angst was kind of annoying, and it got to be too overwhelming as far as the plot and it balancing out with the angst. I can take some angst. I think angst can be really fun, but it had a cool murder mystery plot line, and there was some commentary in there about if the figure who has been murdered is important or not, the level of dedication that will go into the solving of the murder. Like, there's some interesting commentary in there, but it got overshadowed and overpowered by, but oh my gosh, the way the moonlight shone on her hair. And I was like, dang it, I want to know more about this other thing going on. So Seven Faceless Saints just didn't work for me, but that's okay. I will say, there is a review for this one that I saw that sent me down a rabbit hole of just reading any review by the person who wrote it, because it was so thorough and I thought so funny, but not funny in the traditional way. It wasn't like mocking, it was just clever and witty. And if I can find that review and that reviewer, I think they had a blog or something, and they just seem like they review for the love of reviewing. I don't know. I mean, that's what a lot of us are doing, but they just like, they're not, I don't know. I loved their voice in their review. So if I can find that individual, I'm going to link them. It's all written, so I don't think they have a channel or anything, but like I said, I spent so much time. I remember really vividly going to like Panera Bread with my husband and talking about this review and this reviewer and just being like, they're so funny. And reading excerpts from the review and stuff. So like I said, if I can find it and find them, I'll link them because they were great. But anyway, that's it for some what I'm just gonna call soft and hard DNFs. We'll see for some of these. Maybe I will come back to them. I feel like in talking about not wanting to read them, I made myself sad at that idea and maybe talked myself into keep continuing on with them. But anyway, let me know, what are some soft DNFs for you? What are some very hard DNFs for you? What are your thoughts on the things that I mentioned from today? I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day though, and I'll see you later. Bye.